everyone can hear and know. Anyway, as I was saying, Folwell Design System and Drupal 8 at the University of Minnesota. Hopefully this is broadly applicable to people outside the University of Minnesota as well, because the way we went about sort of creating this, I think, has value outside of just our community. So my name is Jim Hart. I work with the Drupal support team in OIT at the U of M, and we did not actually communicate beforehand on wear your pink plaid shirt, but somehow that worked out really well. Dimitri?
My name is Dimitri, web developer in University Relations, University of Minnesota. So I have been working in Folwell project for the last 2 years. So yeah, I'm gonna walk you through the Folwell design system and some of the Folwell components. Folwell is an evolving design system made up of reusable, maintainable, and modular components. So we follow an atomic design system to develop all those components. We start developing components from an atomic level, from a smaller piece. Then we build together and make it like atoms, organisms, and to the template and page levels. So I'm gonna show you a little bit, like consider it the atomic design system as like a large bucket of Lego blocks. You can just pick whatever blocks you want and mix and match to create the component you want. So consider it as those small building blocks, the Lego blocks, so that you can mix together to create a component. That's the logic behind designing our Folwell components. This is our Folwell site. It's a Drupal 8 site made up of the Folwell components. So if you can see those specific components on this page, for example, if you can see the icons, this gray area, it's an organism level. So made up of icons, which is an atom, and labels, and a button, which is a molecule, and headers. So we put together to create this section, which is an organism. So we have another organism here, the hero image with overlay callout. So it's a combination of atoms and molecules, and it creates an organism. So we have a couple of organisms over here, even the CTA and the footer. So those organisms mixed together to create this home page, including the navigation and the unit system area. So Folwell is basically built with flexibility in mind. So right now it's in Drupal Enterprise, Drupal 8 Enterprise and Drupal Lite 8. So out of the box, Folwell is available for Drupal 8 and Drupal Lite 8 across the EU. So also we have a pattern library. All the Folwell components are available inside our pattern library system. I'm gonna walk you through in a bit. So yeah, you can use the Folwell components beside Drupal environment in any applications like decoupled applications or static sites or WordPress sites, any application you want. So you just grab from pattern library and you can use it in any environment you want. So this is a pattern library you have developed. So we are using a PHP powered pattern lab to develop this site. So for each component, we offer both markups and guidelines for each of the Folwell components. If you take a look, one example. So if I take a look, this is a slideshow. There is an implementation recommendation and a guideline. At the same time, a Twig and HTML markup for this specific component. So you just grab all the related script and styles from here, from the asset repo. Yeah, you can.
I actually need to have a password here, don't I?
Sorry.
Are you just at folwell.com or
It is. It's so.
.edu?
Yeah, Folwell.umn.edu
Okay.
is the showcase site for the Folwell theme.
Yeah.
And then Dimitri was just showing also pattern-library.umn.edu is the pattern lab example.
Yeah, so inside the repo, we have all the related JavaScript files and SAS files for a specific component we used in Pattern Lab. So for the slideshow, we have the Slick slideshow library here. You just grab the script from here. You can use it in any platform you want. At the same time, there is a related SAS partial for this specific component, slideshow.scss. So you can just grab all the SAS partial in JavaScript, and you can use it in any platform you want.
And just to jump in, what Dimitri's showing you right now is part of the University of Minnesota's GitHub Enterprise. So some of that stuff won't be available if you are not affiliated with the university. I don't know if your team has plans to open source some of this.
Yeah.
What I will show in a little bit is stuff that I've moved from our GitHub Enterprise to github.com that contains a lot of what Dimitri has here as well. So there will be a chance for those outside the university to see some of this code.
Yeah, maybe I can put it in your GitHub repo. So yeah. So inside the pattern library, you can find everything. The pattern lab side, it has some responsive icons. You can just simply click to see how responsive each components are in small screen, medium screen, large screen, and like full width. So everything is there for our Folwell component. I strongly advise anyone who wants to use Folwell components for non-Drupal sites. You can just go to the pattern library. You can see the markups and the styles used, all the associated library for a specific components. So we followed 3 design principles. We tried to make the design as minimal as possible. By keeping the design element minimal, the Folwell team allows the content to be stand out. Also, the second design principle is to be adaptable. Folwell design system is adaptable. You can use it in any platform, any application, or any site. So it's adaptable because of the pattern library. The code is there, so you can use it anywhere you want. Accessible. So all the components are accessible out of the box. So we have done lots of work to make all the components are accessible. So in the University of Minnesota, all the Folwell components we are offering are accessible out of the box. So accessibility is a big thing in our university. There are a couple of benefits. The first one is usability. So we do usability before we release any new component. So in our usability lab, we do like sort of usability testing. So the Folwell components are usable. So anyone who can use a Folwell component doesn't need to go usability because its usability is already done for unit. Also, it saves time and money. So most of the components are developed out of the box, so it will save time and money for units. Accessibility, it's accessible out of the box. Multi-platform, it's multi-platform, like you can use it all over other platform and applications. Of course, it will enhance perception because the consistency across the university will create enhancement of perception. The next thing I'm going through is the essential components. So we highly recommend those components as essential, we recommend each unit to use the unit site identity, the navigation. As you can see, we customized superficial navigation to be on-click, and we added some enhancement to make it more accessible. So we highly recommend those components to be used all across the U sites, the fonts. So we are using Open Sans as a font for our Folwell design system. And the links, I can go through those components one by one. So typography, we have headings and text. So one of the component is like the font, the very basic component. We are using Open Sans because it addresses readability. It includes wide number of font styles, or like it's free Google font, so it's available to download by anyone. So that's why we choose to use Open Sans. This is our intro text style. Also, those are our heading styles. We use headings like H1, H2, up to H6 level with different spacing between them. This is our heading styles. So for all of our components, we put a usage, best practice, and accessibility button so that you can easily check what are the accessibility things done for those components, and also what are the best practice to follow. Caption and photo credit. This is our caption and photo credit styles we have used. Font Awesome icons. So Font Awesome 5 is available out of the box for Folwell web theme. Links, we have two kinds of link style. One is regular link style. The second one is emphasis link style. So the emphasis link used out of the body content, it's similar like you are using a button. So we offer two kinds of link styles. List, it's regular list. It's an ordered and orderly style. Pull quote and block quote. This is our pull quote style, and this is our block quote style. So as I tried to mention earlier, so we build our components by mixing and matching smaller pieces. So if you can take the block quote, it's a combination of our gray color class and the left border. Accordions. This is our accordion style. This is an accordion component, so you can have an accordion inside an accordion. You can nest even a table inside an accordion, so it's fully accessible. This is an accordion component. The other one is breadcrumbs. This is our breadcrumb style. Buttons, we have a couple of button styles. We have smaller button, regular button, emphasis button, outline, and the GIF button. Actually, the full width button it just takes full width of the container. So these are our button styles. So there is a usage, best practice, and accessibility for all our components. These are specific to Drupal 8, the usage part, because how do you add a usage, how do you add a button to your WYSIWYG, or how do you implement a button in your node? So these are the usage are related to Drupal 8. But if you want to use a button or other components, you just can go to pattern library. You can get a usage and the code snippet for each component.
In the interest of time, do you want to hit just a couple more, and they can kind of check them out separately, and then we'll transition over to showing how it's implemented some of the stuff?
Yeah. So do you want to jump in?
Well, do you want to highlight one or two more as sort of
Sure.
key elements, and then we'll switch over?
Yeah, so we have different image styles, as you can see here. Also, we have a couple of so navigation is the other thing. We have horizontal navigation, which is on-click using a superfish, customized superfish. We have a mobile menu. So the mobile menu for Folwell.
Yeah, be in full screen. I think if you tab back over to the...
What happened?
Probably just the mobile menu. Yeah. Anyway, there's an example of it.
Yeah.
Trying to actually show it is.
But yeah, okay. So we have a couple of site unit identities. These are like the basic components site unit identity used across the U. The one having like 2 lines, and the one having with parent unit, optional parent unit, and one having different style for the header. So we have some example pages. You can just take a look on the Folwell side. So we put together all these components in an example page. So here you can see what kinds of components used on this specific page. So we use intro text over there, and we use slideshow building these pages. I can add one more example page here. If you can see this page, for example, it is degrees and programs page using callouts here, the regular link style, buttons, and intro text on the top. So mixing, matching all those components into a page. So that's a kind of design system we are following. Jim will go through how he added in Drupal 8 all those components. Yeah, thanks.
I like how I put this on Do Not Disturb, and then it keeps making noises. So anyway,
So my part is to talk a little bit about how I took the designs and the components that Dimitri and his team put together and actually implemented this in our Drupal 8 theme, so that all the sites at the University of Minnesota can take advantage of this sort of out of the box. I have the theme here. There's a GitHub link to the theme code there. This is built off of Nito as the base theme, and that is because Dimitri's group used Bourbon and Neat as the CSS frameworks behind what they were doing. And so I just sort of followed their start there. So I basically just adapted the pattern library into a Drupal theme, but was very sort of hands-off with things like regions, and built it with the mindset of this is going to be implemented on individual sites with Layout Builder. We were looking forward to the release of Layout Builder in 8.7. We were really dogfooding Layout Builder in 8.5, making sure that anything we were doing along these ways was going to work with it. So I never really built this really thinking, hey, we're going to be heavily using node templates, or going really in with heavily defining theme regions and leaving it a lot to at your node types and such to compose this stuff along the way. So the theme is just a part of it. I actually did most of the heavy lifting in a separate module that I built, or a whole suite of submodules that are the Folwell components. So the stuff that Dimitri showed first there, the typography, the headings, some of those clear things, those are all part of the main theme. But as we got into, hey, that accordion he showed, or those callouts, or all those things, those are all implemented in these submodules. And unfortunately, Drupal 8 doesn't let me declare a theme have a module dependency, so it's sort of like you have to use these things in coupled. But you could actually run this without the Folwell theme to get like the JavaScript that's packaged with the Accordion or whatever, but you wouldn't get like the typography alongside it. And within this, I took different routes to implement the components, exposing them to the user in either WYSIWYG plugins, so like CK editor plugins within your WYSIWYG, you can add some of these elements just there, with some limitations. Using paragraphs very heavily, so that this can be, you can just add a follow components field onto your content type, and then add any of these packages just as a paragraph. Or what I'm using blocks for, which is really just blocks wrapping other paragraphs for the point of view of the mindset of using them within Layout Builder. So the three submodules that have a part of it, I'll kind of talk about them a little bit one by one. They are all part of this Folwell components repository. So if you look in there, the submodules are within that. They're not separate, completely separate modules. So the Folwell WYSIWYG is providing, I use configuration heavily in this. So within all of these modules, there is, the configuration system is so nice because I can just, without having to rely on features like we would in Drupal 7 and the whole difficulty of, we got to do feature reverts and all of that, just package up a bunch of YAML files with these modules, and you turn the module on, and boom, I've created a bunch of paragraph bundles on your site. And then I can go and sort of update those in place with just a install hook or an update hook rather than dealing with like a feature revert and that kind of stuff. So what the Folwell WYSIWYG comes along with, if you do this route, the thing you learn very quickly is you got to namespace any of your configuration very carefully, because you don't want to run into an issue where like you've created a CK editor, a text format, and I call my text format, my text format, and then somebody else has created their site with my text format on it too, and then you can't install the module. So namespacing those configuration, those config entities is very useful. So the Folwell WYSIWYG module comes with a pre-built text format with all of your filters set up like you should have them, so that all of the allowed markup is what it needs to be to allow these things to all be in place. I heavily use here. This is if you look at these slides, and they'll be available. The links I have in here are going to be for like, here's some guidance for how you do some of this stuff. Here's examples of this stuff in play. The CK editor website itself has great examples of how you build a plugin for the editor. But I'll show. I should have logged into a site beforehand. So we get in there my lovely icons that I built myself for a call out, which CK Editor plugin lets you create a dialog box to submit any settings for it. And then you drop it in as a low configurable element within the WYSIWYG with the markup sort of predefined by these little JavaScript plugins that you write for CK Editor. I'm not an icon designer, obviously, so my pull quote and my call out have a C and a P, but they will just drop that fully formatted package right into your WYSIWYG so that you don't have to like go in and edit source and add a class to make sure you get the thing that you need to get or whatever. It's just nicely designed there for you. A really good example, and what I cribbed a lot of what I did from initially, is the CK Editor Accordions module that's in Contrib is a really good way of, if you poke through that code, learning how to implement one of these CK Editor plugins, I think. We didn't use it because we didn't like the markup that it generated, and so when I get accordions into the WYSIWYG editor, which I don't yet, I'll diverge from that, but that's a great example of one of those in play and a really useful one. Now the CK Editor plugins aren't perfect. Dimitri showed that like accordions, in the style, you can nest them. Well, you can't really create a nested accordion with a CK Editor plugin. Like the way that would work would be super complex. You could create an accordion where you're going to add rows to it or take them out, but to add an accordion within an accordion, it's not going to work. So we really had to find a different route to implement some of this stuff. Similarly, trying to include media entities within something within the WYSIWYG is super complex. So it's like, we're just not going to go that route. So the things that you can do in the WYSIWYG are much, much more limited than what we would allow you to do using, for example, the Folwell paragraph submodule. So this one creates a whole ton of paragraph types, and I technically really should break it into 2 modules at some point because there's a lot of media handling in it that I really should make as a submodule that just does media handling. But this lets you put into any given content type hey, I've got a paragraph field here, and I can add any one of these things in. And I can drop in a call out, and I can add media to it, I can add text to it, I can change the style here. And the I need my water. The output will be what you saw on the Folwell example site. So it's an iterative process. We had a set of core components that we needed to get into place right away. We're continuing to add to them, but using paragraphs as the way to do it on a node-by-node basis is a really good way to implement that as something that you can put that paragraph type in place and have it usable right off the bat without anybody having to create fields or create paragraph types and the like. You can do a lot of pre-processing on the fields in the code. You can grab one of these field values, and what I really need to do is not display it, but instead show it as a class on the thing. So implementing this as a submodule is a really good approach to getting it in, rather than trying to shoehorn it all into just the theme code, and gives me, opens up the canvas for where I can work on this stuff. Damn it, why don't you be quiet? So then the blocks. The Folwell blocks module is really the smallest component to it. It is really only configuration, and the block is just a container for one of those paragraph fields that I just showed you. And the reason that I do this is I don't know what your experience is with Layout Builder to this point. Anybody here has played with it. But trying to use, have a paragraphs field on a node, and then using Layout Builder to control that becomes very problematic, because the field of your paragraphs is just one thing from the point of view of Layout Builder. So I have 3 paragraphs in it, but by default I can't say, oh, I want the accordion to go into this region, and I want the call out to go into this region, or whatever. You just move the paragraph field. So going to blocks is a way to put this suspect here to give me that option. So then I can go to layout, and I can, if anybody go to a presentation on Layout Builder or kind of see this interface if you're not familiar with it yet, but go over here, I can add a Folwell component block, and this is Layout Builder modal. I don't know, most of the time if you're trying to add a custom block in Layout Builder, it's going to be in that sidebar tray. And if you're trying to add something that's got multiple fields to it, WYSIWYGs, paragraph, all of that kind of stuff, this settings tray becomes very complicated to deal with very quickly. So the Layout Builder modal is super nice. It's it's using the jQuery UI dialog. It's not the nicest package, but it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of how you can stick stuff in that edit field. But then I can just drop my, test thing. I don't want the display title, and then I want to add. I didn't want to add a slideshow. That's too much. But then, here's my call out, and I can't type very much. But then I can drop that in here. Whereas if I had 3 different call outs on a paragraph that was on the node, they would all just be in one thing together, and I couldn't move them or assign them individually. Now there is, paragraph blocks is an interesting module that's trying to address this, where you can basically assign a delta to each paragraph that you've added to a node, and then go to Layout Builder and say, the first one goes here, and the second one goes here, and the third one goes here. I find that interface a little more burdensome on the content editor. So taking this blocks approach to it has been the way that we've been tackling that. So then the other element to how we deal with this and how we deal with continuing to develop this theme and the system that we're offering to people is a governance process. And because we are building this as a way to be a de facto standard for how sites of the university use consistent user experience patterns throughout the site to site to site, so you don't have a wild difference between what you see when you go to one college site versus going to another college site. We want to keep a stakeholder governance group so that people are having their voices heard in this and that they're determining what does or doesn't get added and having a voice. So this is mostly spearheaded by Dimitri's group. The university relations kind of handles the design and the governance, and then OIT, my group, handles the implementation and the platform part of it. But we work together in this governance process where we have a committee of stakeholders throughout the university. There is an already existing Drupal governance board at the university that is sort of the steering committee of that governance board. And then there's feedback forms on folwell.um.edu. So if you were looking at the site that Dimitri was showcasing, there's a, that made everything small. There's this tool that they have in place for voting on stuff, reporting bug issues, asking for new components to be developed. And I want to get this back to presentation. And so those are all then go through the board, decide what to work on. Dimitri would develop that actual code for that. It would go to usability. It would go through some accessibility, lost my word, accessibility vetting, and then come to me for implementation as part of a Drupal theme. And sort of we continue that cyclical process to develop this theme. So that's the long and short of it. And I wanted to have some time for questions. Yeah, we got a little over 10 minutes or so. For any questions as to what we've talked about here. Yeah?
So you had a content type that had paragraphs on it. So you're talking about like the layout builders, or eventually, I guess, are you going to continue to have content types that where you can put paragraphs in your content, or is that all going to move over to layout builder?
The way we're approaching it is a hybrid right now. So the content types have that paragraph field on them. I think that the idea is that the standard layout we deliver, like what I'm showing you right there is what at the university we have is called Drupal Lite, right? So we offer Drupal Enterprise and Drupal Lite, and Drupal Enterprise won't give you any pre-built content types, and it won't give you any of that stuff. And so you can determine as a site owner of an enterprise site how you want to approach this. Drupal Lite gives you a handful of paragraph types, of content types, and it does have that paragraph field in them, and by default, the stuff in that paragraph field is in the right-hand column. And solving for the really basic use case of I want like a standard layout or my content, and I've got sort of side content, and you don't have to make any changes right off the bat, and use it just as the paragraph field on the content type right there. But in all of much of Drupal Lite is also carried by a lot of documentation because Layout Builder is this whole new thing. We have a lot of users that come from Panoply and Drupal 7 and kind of making an adoption to that, to Layout Builder. There's some things that are normal and some things that seem very different to them, and so we're trying to like heavily document it. But the idea would be that as that becomes a limitation, you would switch over to using blocks for that. Who knows? Yeah.
So at the U, I usually do Drupal Lite systems or like software or whatever because it's so quick and easy. So am I understanding this correctly, because I'm not a programmer, I come from the designer side of things, that I'd be able to request a site like this, get kind of a similar, it's like, I'm picturing this like on steroids, Drupal Lite on steroids basically, and then I can go in there and code a little bit more than I would in Drupal Lite, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what I would get from you if I actually said, hey, I want to follow design Drupal Lite. Sure. Yeah. I mean, what I'm showing you right here, this is what you would get right now. With 3 content types,
with a standard layout on each one, and then that layout builder option on any nodes to arrange the stuff around. We went with, because of our familiarity of our customers with Panoply and 7, we provided all the radix layouts that are a part of Panoply. We provided those in Drupal 8 as well, so that you would go and have the same set of layouts that you would be familiar with from the Drupal 7 days on Layout Builder in Drupal 8, and you would be able to, pick and choose what goes where and the like in that Layout Builder interface. What we've also done is build it on top of the exact same platform we use for Drupal Enterprise. In 7, we had Drupal Enterprise and Drupal Lite as 2 separate products, and they were using different tools in Acquia, and we had very different restrictions as to what users were able to do there. For Drupal 8, if you get a Drupal Lite site and you want to eventually do more with it, or you eventually want to, hey, I know CSS, I know enough to sort of write the bootstrap code to have my own Drupal theme, you could sub-theme Folwell and do whatever kind of stuff that you want to on top of that down the road. But you're not required to have your own code. You're not required to have your own theme off of that. You can compose a site entirely using the components we offer and Layout Builder and have a hopefully very complete toolkit to build your site. Yeah?
So, we are from the state of Minnesota, so I'm thinking more like, say, if a mathematics department in U of M, they want to create a website, you'll just give them, here is a pattern, follow that pattern. They just import it into their GitHub, whatever, the installation. And then they say, okay, I see only 3 content types. I need one more content type, use type. I just go and create my own content type on the above. And it's more like the theming, the front end, how it's more like how the look and feel is, the theming is. That's what that gets auto-imported.
Yeah, you would be able to create your own content type and have basically an open canvas and that type, whatever fields you want to add to it. And then as you want to, if you wanted to add a paragraph of those types that are predefined there, you would just be able to add those Folwell components to your new content type for free without having to write any node type templates or anything like that, just by using the paragraphs.
So more like this will be my base theme and base content type. So I couldn't read the content type. So if you already have a content type, I can import it and then I can update that, upgrade the content type itself, saying customize it for my need.
Yeah.
So more like this forms like a base, like can keep on overriding it with whatever we want.
Yeah, and there's that's where we make a differentiation between and why I said it's really important to namespace if you're doing configuration in the modules that are powering this stuff. If you don't name, if you would want to sort of build off it and create your own content type that's an example of it. Because if I went back and we go through governance and we're like, we want to change this, that, or the other thing to the existing stuff, and that gets approved by all of the layers of governance there, I'm going to go and change that stuff in place on existing sites. So if you have fields, if you went to an existing content type and you added fields to it, that would, I would recommend instead you create your own content type that might take stuff from that content type, but I'm overriding the stuff that you've done down the road, which is why everything that I do is like this namespaced either Folwell underscore thing or a DL for Drupal Lite underscore thing. So that sort of is the indicator that we own that, and that is subject to our governance. And if you're going to do something else, you can adopt components to it. But if you want to protect your things, you need to build them as your own stuff with separate machine names and the like.
So more like whenever there is a version 2 of the Folwell, you just say here is a new set of pattern, and you just run it into your system.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about implementing the options and things that we get that you were talking about. So for something, for example, like the button styling, if you wanted to style a link as a button, is that something that you found as an existing plugin, or is that a custom thing that you wrote? Can you talk a little bit about how that's implemented?
Yeah, the button styling is actually one of the easier things. Where's where I'm logged into here? Because that is just using the options in the styles dropdown, which I need to put in like a link. Where's the link button? Right, so then, why is that not working on me right now? Live demos are fun. So if you go to, what you would be able to configure in the UI of your text format, where you can basically say class and an element, and you give it an arbitrary name. I put that just in code. So there is just a thing. I want to get to just to show real quick, just a lovely array. Not the right one. That's in Folwell components. Right. So this is I'm just sticking in what basically the equivalent of what would go in that that box in the text format settings. So an A with this BG maroon and button class, and then that would be selectable in that styles dropdown. So a lot of the basic stuff where you just want to apply a class to an element can be done this way, or just through that that UI for setting the styles dropdown. And so that's the simplest use case. The plugins get a little more, to show real quick what one looks like. Where you have basically, and this is all in the CK editor documentation itself, where you just have a big object that it says, basically, it has a template. This is the basic markup of what that plugin is going to look like. You get to say, like, this is the section that's actually editable, and then you can give it specifically what classes and stuff you're going to allow in there and the like. But it's basically just a big declarative object that says this is what this component is supposed to look like. And then there's a couple of other little bits of boilerplate code to kind of hook things together. But that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.